Hello, friends. It's Greg here on the Blue Feather Ephemera channel. I sell vintage print ads in an eBay store, also called Blue Feather Ephemera. During this past week, I had a total of 17 sales for $257.09. Let's take a look. This first advertisement come from Road and Track Magazine, 1956. Pay attention to the title here. I wrote 56 Porsche Carrera Spider Engine, Dream Car, Man Cave, Garage, Vintage Print Ad 1956. That's just a reminder to pay attention, research your keywords, and make sure you get them into the title if you can. $18.77 sent this ad to a repeat buyer in Massachusetts. Here's a nice advertisement for Rheingold beer, made by Liebman Breweries, New York, 1958. This appeared in New Yorker magazine, and that brewery chose a Miss Rheingold each year during that era. The one shown here, Madeline Darrow, is on the court in her tennis whites. It's a nice ad. $16.77 sent this to a buyer in Maine. This advertisement was a small one. It measures about 5 inches by 6 inches, and it came from a 1941 issue of House Beautiful magazine. It's for Lida Lear. The ad says it's preferred perfection, and in the small print there, leading architects and decorators select Lida Lear fixtures and lamps for their beauty, efficiency, and durability. $8.77 sent this ad to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Aristocraft Boat Company of Atlanta, Georgia, ran this advertisement in a 1972 edition of Boating Magazine. And this boat was a 19-footer. It had a Mercruiser stern drive engine setup, and $14.77 sent this to a buyer in Tennessee. This next item is not a print ad. You might recall a couple of weeks ago, I explained that about 5% of the items in my store might be taken from magazines, but they're not actually advertising. But this is one of only about 5 items in the store that did not come from a magazine. It's a printed lithograph of a poem called High Flight that was written in 1941 by a man named John McGee Jr. He had an American father and an English mother, and when he was in the U.S. in 1940, he decided that he wanted to go to Canada and join the Royal Canadian Air Force, learn to fly, and then go back to England to help protect his friends there. So that's what he did. He joined up, he soloed, earned his wings, and then in the summer of 1941, he was stationed with a unit in England. He had only been there a couple of months when he wrote this poem and mailed it back home. Uh, he died tragically about 4 months later in a training accident in a midair collision. This poem, the first and last lines of the poem, serve as an epitaph on his gravestone. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth, put out my hand and touched the face of God. That's famous now and it's well known to flyers, but this is a nice lithograph. It sold for $14.77. It's going to Pennsylvania. The next advertisement is from the Quartermaster Review Magazine, 1943. It's a small ad. It measures about 4 inches by 6 inches. It shows a paratrooper ready to jump from the plane, and it talks about the company's ammunition for victory, quality fruits and vegetables, army rations, and special packs. It says the company is headquartered in Indianapolis, Indiana, and it was after they merged with Van Camp's, which is the maker of Beanie Weenies. In recent years, the operations were bought by the Pepsi-Cola Company, which still owns it today. But the company grew out of operations in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the Stokely family has always had strong ties to the university there. Major gifts from the family paid for the renovation of the armory and field house that was later renamed the Stokely Athletic Center, and that's where the Volunteers played for a couple of decades. That's probably why a buyer in Knoxville, Tennessee paid $8.77 for this ad. This next advertisement showed up in House Beautiful magazine, 1950. It's for Kittinger Furniture. This is a half page ad from Buffalo, New York. It's going to a repeat buyer for $10.77. That's sending it back to New York. This is a special advertisement right here because it takes me back to my childhood. It's an advertisement for Ditto copiers from 1946. It appeared in Time magazine. Now, if you don't
Nincompoopers is upside down.
Oh, hey, sorry, Dubov. My apologies. If you don't recognize it in the picture here, this is a spirit fluid copier, and I remember our school office had one in the 1970s. And every now and then a teacher would go to the office and make worksheet copies and come back while the ink was still fresh, or if you were lucky, a teacher would send you to the office with the master copy and you would stand there while the office secretary made copies in that machine. Had a very, besides the odor of the ink, it had a very specific sound to it as well. But you'd carry that back to the classroom with the paper feeling all damp from the spirit fluid. This ad has nice Art Deco art to it, and it's got a train and an airplane there in the Art Deco style. And it talks about the various economical duplicating for industrial uses. But $12.77 sent this to a buyer in Tennessee. Next up is an ad that comes from way back in 1936. It's a company called Colonial Manufacturing. It's a company based in Zeeland, Michigan, and they're advertising this Longfellow's desk. It's a small ad. It measures about 3 inches by 6 inches, and $10.77 is sending this ad to a buyer in Florida. The buyer of this ad contacted me to tell me that he's hoping to collect all of the series of advertisements that use this artwork in the ads. There'd be 9 because there's 9 panels of the original mural that's in Norton Hall in Worcester, Massachusetts, where this company's based. The company made grinding wheels for industrial manufacturing applications, and this ad appeared in the March 1930 issue of Fortune magazine. The woodcut of the mural panel was done by an artist called Howard McCormick, and it's a good example of what was called New Deal art that was popular with trade unions and progressive politics. This nice full page ad sold for $21.77, and it's going to a buyer in Indiana. All 3 of these next ads went to the same buyer. This one is for Brown and Root Industrial Engineers based in Houston, Texas. It ran in Fortune magazine in 1954. The company planned and built factories all across the U.S., taking into account factors like power availability, transportation, and the local labor market. They built plants for heavy industry, including chemical, petroleum, petrochemical, and organic chemical processing. $18.77 bought this ad. The second ad to that buyer ran in Collier's magazine in 1949. It's for AT&T Bell telephone system, and the illustration here shows a sample of the buildings that AT&T built or expanded after World War II. It says that they only showed 392 because they didn't have room to put the other 2,400 in the picture. It makes the case for why the telephone business has to be profitable and why it needs investors so that it can continue to grow and serve America. The ad cost $16.77. The third ad going to that buyer is for the Austin Company of Cleveland, Ohio. This ad ran in Fortune magazine in 1965, and that company designs and builds factories. And this one in the ad is for Tops Gum Company the company that sells the chewing gum with the trading cards in it. This nice ad was $21.77 for a 2-page spread, and altogether, all three of these ads are going to a buyer in Illinois. This ad here is not very old. It dates from 1984. It's an ad for Grand Old Par Deluxe Scotch Whiskey. It's just a quarter-page ad. It measures about 5 inches by 6, and it sold for $10.77, going to a buyer in Louisiana. Unlike that last advertisement, this one is old. It ran in 1941 in Fortune magazine, and it's an ad for Carrier Air Conditioning Systems of Syracuse, New York. It explains how the company helps the United States Navy to get its job done. Troops and equipment need air conditioning. And like the United States Marine Corps, you could call Carrier ever faithful. It shows the tall ship there, USS Constitution, that was also known as Old Ironsides, and that ship was built in about 1800. $18.77 sent this ad to a buyer in Texas. Last week, I talked about being excited about feedback, and sometimes you wonder what motivates somebody to buy an ad. Well, sometimes you don't want to know, and I think this is one of those cases here. This advertisement's for an X-rated watch. It is a classy looking quartz LCD chronograph chronometer that turns into an explicitly animated X-rated movie display with throbbing, exciting music. So it'll tell time, it'll tell you the date, it's a stopwatch, it's backlit, and it also shows you a movie. $12.77 sent this advertisement to a buyer in France. This is the last ad, and in this video, or if you've watched my other ones, you've probably noticed, like I have, that black and white ads sell a majority. And so I thought I'd finish this video out with a colorful ad. This bright violet ad from Toll Silversmiths was in House Beautiful magazine in 1950, and it shows their old colonial pattern of silverware there. And this went to a buyer in South Carolina for $18.77. Well, there you have another What Sold video for the week of February the 7th through February the 13th of 2024. I sold 17 items for a total of $257.09. I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you come back next week. Hey, while you're here, I want to invite you to visit my eBay store, Blue Feather Ephemera. The link is down below in the description of this video. I always say, if a thing was sold, collected, celebrated, or built, you can bet it was also advertised. Vintage advertising makes a great addition to any bar, restaurant, man cave, salon, garage, anywhere the right vibe is essential. If you liked the video and want to see more content like this, you can always hit the like button. You can share it with friends, subscribe to the channel, and also leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time.